Geocachomaniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
Well, I'm the bad cop, and as always, I'm excited to be back with Daryl W4 for the 165th installment of the GeoGearHeads. In this show, we're going to be talking with a longtime listener and, I believe, a resident of one of the states I'm not allowed to enter. That's Dano of Team Pugach, and about ways to maintain your bicycle. Dano, welcome to the warmth that is GeoGearHeads.
Well, thank you guys. It's great to be on the show. I've been listening for just about a year now.
Well, we're glad to have you on. And, you know, it's become a little bit of a tradition for us to tell all of the fine listeners who got the prize and actually have the guest do the honors of telling that. And in keeping that with that tradition, we're going to have you announce it. But, Dano, you also have a prize that you're going to give away to a lucky live listener of tonight's show.
That's right. So last week you guys asked what bicycle attribute on geocaching.com meant with a red outline over a bicycle. And that is my least favorite attribute. And that is no bicycles allowed. And Billy Robson, R-O-B-S-O-N, you were drawn as the winner. Congratulations.
Congrats, Billy Robson. And he actually picked the 500 Finds Geo Achievement set from coinsandpins.com. And thanks again to coinsandpins.com for donating that prize. But, as we mentioned, we have a live prize that you've graciously donated. So, real quick, you want to tell people what that prize is?
Yeah, the prize actually just keeps growing as I was going through my desk drawers today. So I started with a Bushwhacker wedge bag. I thought that'd be funny for geocachers, and that's going to go under your bike seat. I found in my desk a 2,000 finds coin. I only have 500 finds. I don't deserve this. I won it on a different podcast, so this will be yours. A multi-tool, because if you get in trouble, you need to have some tools, and a flat kit. So all this will be mailed out to you next week for the lucky winner.
Well, that's quite the generous prize package and very, very useful for what we're talking about today. So here's what you need to do to win that prize. You have to create an email to geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com with the subject bicycle maintenance, and in that body you need to put the answer to the question and your geocaching.com screen name. So what we're looking for this time is which tool got its nickname as the peanut butter wrench after the trend of using its handle to scoop peanut butter by professional racers. And this one was something that I didn't know too much about, and I was really kind of excited when I found out that people actually use this, because it does, when you see the picture, and if you're watching the live video, you can tell. And this is only open to the live viewers, because you have to have your answer in by 9:45 p.m. Eastern. That's 6:45 p.m. Pacific time on tonight, which is the 26th of February. So have that answer in, titled Bicycle Maintenance, to geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com by 9:45 p.m. with that correct answer, which is a crank spanner or a crank bolt spanner, and you could win that prize that Dano has so generously offered to donate.
Daryl, you're not supposed to give the answer away.
Well, it's a live show. We don't want people, running away to go look for the answer.
Yeah, I guess you're right there. Okay, I'll give you that.
Even though it is on Wikipedia under peanut butter wrench. So if you do the peanut space butter space wrench search on Wikipedia, but don't leave the show. You got to stay here. then you can find out more about it and actually see some pictures too.
Nice. Well, Dano, you've certainly put together a nice pile of prizes. And we have another listener who wants to give away some other prizes. Now, you've heard us talk in the past about Wallaby. It's an app, a game on iOS. It's a collecting game, kind of grew out of Foursquare. Well, do you want to win 10,000 honeycomb in Wallaby? thanks to some generosity, you can. Here's how it goes. Now, there's only one entry per person, and what you need to do is message Skip O'Kane. That's SKIPOKANE. Now, your entry must contain the number of your GeoGearhead unique that you have in your pouch, your favorite bit from one of the GeoGearheads Wallaby podcasts, and something you'd like covered in a future show. You put those three things in a message to Skip O'Kane. Now, this contest is going to be open for 7 days from this broadcast, and there's going to be 5 random winners drawn. So it's going to be going till March 4th, and 5 random winners. Message Skip O'Kane. You'll get 10,000 Wallaby honeycombs.
Nice. And I have the feeling he might be lobbying us for another show for Wallaby. What do you think?
He really wants another one. And, I was kind of shocked when I heard it was Wallaby's 3rd birthday. And I go, well, we didn't do a show.
No, we did.
They kept that one pretty low-key, so that was nice.
It's the 3rd, it's been a while. Now, we do have a question in the live Q&A from someone who wanted to know whether the title needs to be Bike Maintenance or Live Question 165, and we are going to go for Bike Maintenance as the subject for that live question. So if you're watching live, make sure to get that email in with Bike Maintenance as the title.
Because you definitely want to win this prize pack. There's some cool stuff, and all else fails, just give me a phone call.
So you want to put your phone number out there for everybody to be able to call?
Oh, of course.
Don't.
Heck, I want to win this prize pack.
Yeah. Now, Dano, you
Yeah.
came on to talk about bicycle maintenance.
That's right.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, where you are right now is cold. And I don't know if just the word cold describes it. What temperatures do we have outside?
At the moment, it's about 19 degrees, but a few days ago, it was -10 on Monday with -22 wind chill. Yeah, it's been a pretty brutal winter.
Now, in comparison, I'm going to be a fair weather bicyclist. There's no way I'm going out at -10 degrees. Did you happen to go out?
Not this year. Sadly, I'm not into cycling as much as I used to. When I lived in Boston, I was a bike messenger and a bike mechanic, so it was my life. I was out there every day no matter what. But now I have the comfort of a car, 4 walls, heat. It's beautiful.
So it's getting ready. I mean, out here, we've had some 50-degree days already. It's been wonderful. I should be getting my bike out and getting it tuned up and ready for this spring and summer season. What are some of the things I should do?
Yeah, absolutely. The big things to do are just the basics. Your tires, your chain, gears and brakes. What I would do is inspect those tires, make sure there's no cracking or dry rot. Tires last a pretty long time. You can probably get a good 5 years or even more out of them. Then go get them inflated. Do it nice and slow because you don't want to cause a pinch flat. I used to call them snake bites because the tube would get stuck on both sides between the rim and the tire, and it'd pop right there. You don't have to go all the way up. I find for off-road, if you're geocaching, go a little less than the top PSI. It's probably going to say like 100 or 110. 80 is plenty for you.
Interesting. I don't know if I've ever done that because, I just usually fill them up once when they need it and off I go.
Yeah, well, on my trail bike, I do that all the time because the trail bike, I want to say, is rated for 50 to 80 psi. So I'll actually, when I'm on a paved trail, I'll crank it up toward the 80 pound. But when I'm on like a dirt or a gravel trail, I like to drain it a little bit and end up toward the bottom around 60 because that tends to work better and give me better traction.
Oh, definitely, and a more cushy ride. If you have it all the way maxed out, it's going to be really harsh if you're hitting bumps on the road, and it all depends on what kind of bike you have and even what kind of saddle you have. But other things is your chain. I found when I was a mechanic that most people over-lubed their chain. They just put way too much gunk on there. So you want to do a little bit. If you imagine a chain, and there's the spots in between where the teeth of the cog go, you can go like every 2 or every 3 and just put a drop of the lube. And then you want to use a rag and wipe it clean so it doesn't collect dirt and mud and all that gunk.
Well, and that's a big problem for those of us geocaching because we are on the dirt trails, or even if we're on a paved trails, we're dealing with those shoulders and whatnot, which turn up all that dust. And one of the worst things that I've heard for cycling are the lime trails, and a lot of them are on those old railroad beds where they used limestone as the ballast. So you've got all this crushed lime sitting around, and that's just corrosive and destroys your chain. So having all that extra lubricant just acts as a glue that sucks up all that junk that you don't want on your chain.
Yeah, exactly. And even when it comes to lube, there's all sorts of them out there. Triflow is a really popular brand. It's like $5. I like the synthetic ones. They have some wax to them. They tend to be about $10 to $12 a bottle. You'll get years and years out of them. The bottle I am on now, I bought in, 2007. Still in the same bottle, but it works better. You don't have to use as much. It doesn't hold as much gunk. So there's definitely a lot of things. Just talk to your local bike store, and they'll give you some good tips for your location.
Well, I was going to say, it sounds like you're more of the wax guy than the oil guy.
Exactly. And that just goes back to when I lived in Boston for 6 years. I rode my bike every single day. I needed to have whatever was good for the rain and the slush and all that junk.
Yeah. Well, you'll talk to different shop owners and mechanics who have different preferences on it. And generally I find that the people who go out on the trail tend to like the oils a little bit better, but they always strip it off at the end of the ride and put on new lube, whereas the guys on the road tend to like the wax, and they just kind of, at most wipe down the chain. They don't actually replace the lube.
Exactly. Some other things, though, I mentioned was gears, like making sure your gears are adjusted, because who wants to be going up this huge incline and all of a sudden it's like, oh, and now I dropped a chain, and I can't get into that gear. So just making sure that it smoothly will change between gears if you have them. It'll make your life a lot easier. You don't have to have a fancy mountain bike to go geocaching by bicycle. You can do it on a beach cruiser. You can do it on a fancy road bike, although I wouldn't recommend it. For most of us, you're probably doing it on what's called a hybrid, a typical commuter bike. And those are the perfect bikes because they've got a rear rack, they've got a front basket, they got fat tires, they're comfortable, they're upright, you're not all hunched down, hurting your back and neck. But whatever bicycle you have, that's the best bicycle for you.
Well, one of the things that I've run into with the chains is that almost everything now uses an index shifting, and so many people are trying to adjust the limit screws to adjust the index shifting rather than actually adjusting where it's supposed to be adjusted. So are there any quick tips for people who are trying to look for how to fix that chain jumping when it's in the middle of the range?
Yeah, so in the mid-range, that's all going to be tension. Pretty much tension is how hard that cable gets pulled when you're pressing the lever. So if it's not going far enough, they have these things called barrel adjusters. You've got them up at your brake handles and gear shifters, and you have them in the back where the parts are. And what you want to do with those is I would screw them out 2 turns on all your barrel adjusters. Make all your adjustments the way you want them, and then screw them back in, because especially if you just replaced with new cables, the more you use it, it's going to stretch out like a guitar cable. So you want to be able to tighten it up if need be, if something's going on when you're out there on the road, because not everyone's going to carry a bag full of tools.
And another thing that you kind of hit on just now is brake adjustments.
Yeah.
And especially going out on the trail, I've gotten dirt and whatnot in the brakes, and that's just a major nuisance, if not, destroying your rims. So any tips on brakes?
Yeah, actually, I'd be curious, what kind of brakes do you have on your bike?
Well, I have on the road bike the standard calipers, side pull calipers, and on the trail bike it's actually disc brakes.
Nice, yeah. So disc brakes are definitely cheaper now. They're going to work great because it brakes in the middle of the wheel. So just pure physics, it's going to be a better braking surface. But if you don't have that, that's cool. My bicycle has a coaster brake. We all have what we use. And with that, best thing for braking, if you're not getting a good grip, you can always sand the rim a little bit so that it grips a little better. And the brake pads, you don't want them straight on. You want the front to be, we call it toed in, so the front half of the brake pad hits the rim before the rear half. That will reduce vibration and you won't get as much squealing.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Now, another thing to adjust is the seat. I mean,
Yes.
how high you're sitting. What's some guidelines for adjusting the seat?
Well, with that, you want to make sure it's high enough, but not too high. You want to have a slight bend to your knee. If you have a straight leg, it's going to be super painful. There's plenty of science out there. You can look at websites, and they're going to fit you like a suit just to figure out where your seat needs to be. If it's too low, your knees are kind of going outward, and you're pedaling bow-legged. So you got to find that nice happy medium. Most people, their seat's too low. Uh, it's all about comfort level. If you're in bike shoes or toe clips, you're probably going to be on your tiptoes. If you're not a everyday cyclist and you're more of a, once or twice a month, you're probably used to having your feet flat on the ground. But that's just way too low. Get it up a little bit higher and you'll go faster with less effort.
That's good to know. Along with seat, some bikes have handlebar adjustments, not all of them.
Yeah. And
What,
with those, like, the handlebar reach, it depends on the kind of bike you have. Like a road bike or a mountain bike, you're going to be more aggressive leaning forward. You don't want to be too far away because it's going to hurt your back and neck. So there's ways where you can adjust the reach by changing the stem. The stem is the part that holds your handlebars. And some of them are reversible, so you flip it around and then it will angle up or angle down, which will give you a different fit. And then if you have something that's more upright, handlebars like cruiser bars, just making sure they're at a good angle so it doesn't hurt your wrists from all the bumps in the road.
Nice.
But one of the great things you guys recommend is, and this is an old copy, I have Bicycle Maintenance Repair by Todd Downs. This was given to me on the first day of being a bicycle mechanic, and it's probably the best layman's book out there. They don't use weird jargon, great illustrations step by step that anybody can figure this out. You don't have to know how to use all these weird tools. Uh, you can do it with just stuff you have at home. It's cool because you look at the illustrations and he doesn't have like a $50 specialty wrench. He just has your old adjustable monkey wrench because that's what you have at home.
Exactly. That's what I use when I'm working on my bike.
Okay, we do actually have a question from the live Q&A from Dane Morgan, who asked, before he can maintain a bicycle, he has to have one. He says, I'm old, fat, and live in the country with lots of gravel, and I'm not very rich. Any buying recommendations?
Yeah, I would say go for used. There's nothing wrong with that. Um, there's plenty of wonderful bikes out there, but you may need to know what to get. Start with going to a local bike shop and just seeing what they have. Or if you live near a big city, they tend to have these community programs like Recycle Bike is usually a name that's used in a lot of places where inner city kids will build bicycles that get sold for the nonprofit and then they earn a bike themselves.
Well, that's
But pretty
nice. I
much,
hadn't heard of that.
yeah, they have Recycle Bike everywhere. I actually learned how to do mechanics from Bikes Not Bombs, which is the name of the place in Boston. But it's the same idea where it's like community kids, let's get them a skill. But then, what you're looking for depends on how much you're going to ride it. If you're just going for a family ride, geocaching on the bike path, again, stick with the hybrid. If you get a mountain bike, maybe consider slick tires if you're staying on mostly paved paths. There's a lot of options out there. I would spend no more than $200 to $250. After that, it's too much to put in the beginning because you're just starting out.
Mhm.
If you're thinking of a department store bike, there's nothing wrong with those. They tend to be heavier and cheaper parts, but that's totally fine. The big thing I'd say is order it online, have it mailed to your house, because you don't want somebody probably 15 years old who doesn't really care what they're doing putting your bike together.
All
That's
right.
a good tip.
Yeah, I never really thought about that, but yeah, probably very true.
Yeah. Like, think about buying a fixed gear from a store that ends in Mart. Probably not the best idea.
No, but they're so cheap that I keep looking at it thinking, that would be a nice beater bike.
Hmm.
Exactly.
Well, we did get another question from Yellow Jeeperman in the live Q&A, and this gets into the actual gear,
Yeah.
and he wants to know if there is a good recommendation for a good smartphone mount. He's had a couple of the generic ones that fall apart while he's out caching.
Yeah, definitely Yellow Jeeper Man. I was looking and doing research of what has great reviews, and it looked like the Archon, Arkon smartphone mount had the best reviews on Amazon. And then it depends on what case you have. I know LifeProof has their own mount. I believe OtterBox might as well. For me, I tend to keep my phone in the back pocket. I love cycling shirts just for that. I wear them geocaching and hiking because it's just extra pockets. Uh, but yeah, don't put them in your jeans pockets. They're gonna fall out, or they're gonna, get all soaked in sweat. And next thing you know, you're gonna come see me and be like, "Oh no, my phone's water damaged. Fix this, please."
Yeah,
Nice.
and I will say that I've for years been using the Biologic cases for the iPhone, and I love those because they are the waterproof cases, and they do support external power supplies through the cable. But they are not necessarily the easiest things to use, and I have to replace them every time I get a new iPhone. And it has to come out of the case. It is a case that you can run around and use it in, but it's not necessarily the best thing. The one that I actually posted to the patron group not too long ago was actually from Night Eyes. And this is a really interesting one that I don't think you really necessarily would want to use if you don't have some kind of hardened case on your phone, because it's just a holder. But the cool thing is it's just a holder that fits just about any phone. So it's a little metal bracket that bolts to the handlebars with a big rubber bungee that goes over the front. So it is going to not give you the best visibility because you have this big bungee covering your part of your phone, but it is going to work with just about any phone out there in almost any case because all it is a rubber bungee holding your phone.
Yeah. And what's also good is I'm a big fan of touring bags. You may have seen them on road bikes in the 70s. It's a big rectangle lunchbox looking bag in between the handlebars, and it has a plastic top for a map. There's enough give in there. You could just slide your smartphone right in the map pocket, and it'll be right there, and it won't get wet. Uh, Otherwise,
Well,
you're
and
looking.
most of the new
Yeah.
ones actually have the vinyl that's built to transfer that touch for your phone. So they actually have the pockets built for the phones right in the top of the touring bag now. And I want to say Topeak has one like that.
Mhm. Yeah. And I use all the time. I keep it in my car. I use one of these bags by E-Case, the E-Series, and this is
Good
my
details.
waterproof phone bag just in case. Well, I've taken my son. He's 4 now, but I remember when he was about 2, I took him geocaching in a hurricane because a little wind's not going to stop us, right?
Yeah, and I've been caching with the iPhone as my primary caching device on the bike because, quite frankly, it works better for me than using the GPS. It's a bigger screen, easier to read, more responsive, and the cases tend to come off a lot quicker and easier
Mhm.
than going out with a GPS and trying to fight to get it off. Or the problem that I have with some of the GPS mounts, especially like the manufacturer GPS mounts for your bike, is they bounce themselves loose. So you have to tie off the GPS somehow to the handlebars to make sure it doesn't bounce itself off and go tumbling down the trail.
Yeah, no, that's no good. The last thing you need is to just watch your phone or GPS or camera or GoPro just tumbling down the hill. Yeah, not fun. I
No.
actually got a good question from DeBear. on Google Plus a couple of hours ago, and he listed some tools that he thought would be good to take along for the ride and wanted to know what I take. So I actually have my tool roll here. This one I love. It's by New Leaf Productions. New Leaf Fabrications. They're on Etsy. I bought this. The bag is from the military. It's an old tool roll from World War II. It's a spare parts roll M13, and the guy is a firefighter, and he took old fire hoses and cut them and made the straps that go in here, so it dangles on the back of my bike seat. But I put so much stuff in here. It's great to have. Like, I have on here my tire lever, and then it has a 15 millimeter bolt on the end because my wheels are bolt-on, so I have to have that. And this is made by PDW. It's a great tool. A multi-tool is essential because you never know when you need to adjust something. Your bicycle is going to use 3 millimeter, 4 millimeter, 5 millimeter Phillips and flathead screwdriver. Let's see, what else do I got in here? Got a pocket knife because you never know when you need to cut something to fix it. Maybe you're cutting a shirt just to make a quick zip tie because you ran out of zip ties. Obviously, you got to have a tube. It's important in case you get a flat. This is the most important trick. It was very expensive the day I learned this because all I had was a 20. But you need a dollar bill. And the reason is you get a flat, you replace your tube. But if your tire gets punctured, how do you protect it from causing a flat to your new tube? So you put this in between the tube and the tire, and being linen paper, it's going to last a long time to the point where you can't even read it anymore. And you won't get any flats because you no longer have a hole in your tire.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's a nice tip.
Last but not least, who wants to get black grease all over those very well camoed geocaches? So, rubber gloves. Also, there's poison ivy everywhere, so it's going to come in handy no matter what. And that's what I like to carry. You don't have to have all that. If you're looking for just what are the must-haves, pump, tube, that's it, really. Patch kits, they're great to have. I think they're a pain in the butt. I don't use them.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm not a big fan of the patch kit, but I do carry it because it's small and light, plus the tube. I've got, I want to say it's called the Alien 2 multi-tool, which I absolutely love because, among other things, it comes apart. So you have like the wrench on one side and the screwdriver on the other side. So that one's a really nice one to look at. Not cheap, a little heavier than a lot of the other multi-tools, but it's really handy. And it, even as I recall, has the tire lever in it. And that's really about all I carry. I'll usually carry some change in there as well, and the 20 and the single, because that way if I have to hire a cab to get home or something, I at least have some cash.
Yeah, no, that's the world we live in. It's whenever I need cash, I don't have it. I've been using a debit card since '95. It's like, what's cash?
Well, the debit card worked to protect the tube, though.
Oh yeah, they should make more durable debit cards. Like they got those fancy metal ones for the rich people. They should have bendable rubber ones for the common man.
There you go. Rubber debit cards. What have we come to?
Well, we have a question from Wet Coaster.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to know what a dollar bill is and if a loonie would work instead.
I will say yes.
A loonie's a coin, so I don't think so.
I was just going to say, I think the loonie can be the bill as well.
Okay.
But I don't remember. However, I don't know that Kool-Aid money is as resistance.
Yeah, no, because the whole thing about the dollar bill is it's the paper that it's made out of. I've never tried it with other money. Like I have some leftover euros from a couple years ago. I don't know how those will hold up. Can let you know after the summer.
No, I would imagine that most of the currency would work, the actual bills, because I don't know that anyone is using just like a vellum anymore. But that had been a thing at one point, is they were using vellums instead of the fibrous like fabric almost paper. I can't remember what it's called now. But that's why it's so resilient and so durable, is because it is like a combination paper that's not just the wood pulp.
Mhm. No, definitely. And you can go crazy. We're gearheads. We all have that desire to constantly get more and more and more stuff. So I could give you guys a 4-hour show just on accessories. Uh, so I'm not going to overload everyone, but there's definitely a few things that if you're looking to make your ride a little more enjoyable, as I said earlier, cycling jerseys, because of those rear pockets, are super comfy. I like the wool ones because it doesn't smell when you get sweaty. It actually keeps you warm if you get sweaty in colder weather. Uh, it's more classic. I like the vintage look. Uh, a rear rack is great, so that way you're not wearing a backpack like panniers, those saddle bags on the back to hold your lunch, your raincoat, first aid kit. It really depends on how long you guys are going out for a ride. Like what I bring if I'm going 2 miles to the beach is a lot different than what I'm going to bring if I'm going on a 60 or 90-mile charity ride. Lights, if you're going to be caught late at night at dinner time, I definitely bring. Uh, if you're a ride leader, when I do the Tweed ride every couple of years, where we get in our vintage clothes and ride around on 3 speeds, I bring a full tool chest full of tools because you never know what's going to happen. I've had to put crank arms back on people's bicycles in the middle of a ride, but I'm not going to take that geocaching.
Nice. Now, so we've talked about what to do before the ride. We know how to repair tires and keep the bike going. What should we do after the ride?
Ah, great question, Bad Cop. So after the ride, you want to clean all that muck off your bike. You don't want it to look all horrible and get all rusty. You spent a lot of time and money on it. You want to relube the chain if you just cleaned all that junk off. If you didn't clean your chain post-ride, leave it alone. Once a month is plenty. And then check for flats and other damage. If you had a spill, make sure that the bike's not compromised. One of the big things when you're looking at damaged bike frames is where the damage is, what it looks like. One of the jobs I used to have is I worked for a very high-end bicycle company. $10,000 bicycles. I made Willie Nelson's handlebars actually out of titanium. But that's another story. But pretty much, like, do you see bubbling? Do you see cracking in certain stress points? And the biggest would be the in the front of the bike, you have the top bar that goes between your legs, and then you have another connection, which is where the handlebar part goes down, and the fork for the front wheel goes up. So right under that angle, if you get the bubbling and denting right in there in that top tube section, it might be time for a new frame. And I'd take it to a local bike shop and get their professional opinion on that.
Interesting. So you made the thing that Willie Nelson puts his hands all over.
I did. He bought a road bike, and I made ape hanger handlebars out of titanium for him. That's my claim to fame.
I love it.
Let's see. I'm just looking here. I didn't know if there was a live question or not.
I was just going to say we have a question from Limax. It's actually more of a comment than a question. He said, I just uncovered my bicycle again recently out of the garage. I hope to start riding again this year. This is a recumbent, so no trail riding for me. Now, I know a lot of people who do go trail riding on recumbents, but I think it depends a lot on the recumbent. And if you have one of those small tire recumbents, like some of them are like 10-inch tires, those I can definitely see would be rather uncomfortable on the trail.
Yeah, he can definitely do off-road recumbent riding. I've never ridden a recumbent, but I remember when I worked at the shop in Boston, I haven't worked there in about 5 years. There was a guy who's been riding recumbents since the 70s, and he had an off-road one that he brought in. It was pretty impressive. I'd say just do some internet research. One of my favorite places for bicycle info, whether it's how to fix something, reviews of gear, trying to find hard to find parts, vintage parts. Sheldon Brown's website. Sheldon Brown is no longer with us. He was kind of the Wikipedia of bicycling before Wikipedia came out. And his old bike shop actually still runs his website. So we'll get that in the show notes so everybody can take a peek and learn. But it's just sheldonbrown.com. And that's my go-to whenever it's like, okay, is this compatible with this? Or I don't remember what size diameter that was. It's a good bookmark to keep on your phone even when you're out and about.
Excellent. And we will have a bunch of this stuff in the show notes for anyone who wants to check it out. Not everything, of course, but we've got quite a bit in there. It occurred to me, too, when you were talking about the lights a while ago, and I didn't get a chance to pipe up. There are a number of these lights out there now that come with the handlebar mounts. There are actual flashlights that mount to the handlebars as well. So that could be something that's really good for geocacher, because then you have the light that you can take out with you if you need the light that's already got the mount for the handlebars, and it can double as the headlight in a pinch. I don't know that I'd use that on like the roads, but on the trails that would probably be pretty good.
Depends on the light, too. I'm a big fan of Night Rider lights, and they're pretty bright. I used to get them for winter riding so I could point it directly at the ground and look for potholes in the city. And what I liked about them is they recharge by USB. So just plug it into your office computer all day long, and then you can ride home at the end of the day.
And I assuming we're not talking about a talking car from the 80s.
No, I wish.
That would be interesting. A talking bike.
Mm-hmm.
With the turbo. You got to have the turbo.
Got to have the turbo.
Yeah, otherwise you can't jump over those potholes.
So the big question is when was it like bike play or whatever they're going to call it? Because a car play, when they're going to make our bicycles work with Siri.
Well, and don't forget Android car.
Mm-hmm.
We have to have Android bike.
Yep. And then solar powered, of course. They make them. One of these cool projects I saw at MIT, because the bike shop I worked at was down the street from MIT, was this kid got a folding bicycle and then made it an electric bike and then made it powered by solar recharging batteries. It had like this big thing, looked like a gas tank on it for the solar panels.
Oh, nice.
Pretty rad.
Well, that's getting into a whole bunch of other cool stuff like the alternators and dynamos that you can put in the front wheels so that you can actually charge your phone while you ride and charge your lights and everything else. And there's all kinds of cool stuff that I'd love to get into and play with if I had unlimited funds, of course.
Yeah. If you ask the people who get into all that what they do for a living, you'll find out they all work in the bike industry, and the only reason they can do it is they get everything at wholesale. Because that stuff's expensive. Even when I got it for a cost, it was still ridiculous. And I built a dynamo wheel, but I never got the lights for it because those are $200.
Wow. Well, a lot of that stuff has come down dramatically. So you can get the lights and the chargers and stuff. The one of the cool things with the Biologic, that case that I had, was they have a dynamo that you can get for your front wheel and a charge cradle to plug in your phone and charge your phone. And the whole kit was like under $250 at the time. Of course, I never got it because I had disc brakes, and it wasn't compatible with disc brakes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now,
That's really cool. I'd like to know more.
I rode through a tunnel here in our state that's 2.25 miles long, so it's dark inside there. And I just took two of the flashlights, not unlike, just small ones, bungeed them to the handlebars, and off I went. I placed one, high, one low, so I could see what was coming and what I was about to hit. And it worked great.
Yeah,
so, there are ways around it.
Absolutely, and there's a guy who runs a website that thinks just like that. Urban Velo. Oh, no, sorry. Orange Velo. I'm getting my websites mixed up. Orange Velo, and he imports all this really high-end Japanese cycling stuff and camping gear, and he actually has these metal brackets that hold flashlights just so you can do that.
Okay. There you go. That's even better than bungees.
Well, and there's so many cool things that I've seen from the European markets, like weird belt drives with the internal shifting hubs and internal braking hubs, so that you don't have to deal with all of that trail gook. And I've always wanted to try it, but you can never find that stuff over here in the U.S.
A lot of stuff you're gonna find on the internet, or you're gonna find at like flea market swaps and whatnot. eBay's your friend. I found that like with guitar stuff, I've been buying everything from Hong Kong direct, dirt cheap. It's so much better than going to the local brick and mortar place.
Well, and talking up again about the lights, and I'm jumping all over the place. I apologize. One of the things that I like to do is I have a handlebar mount light that points down, and then I have a helmet mount for my other light. So I have two lights that points out, so that whatever I'm looking at is lit. And I don't know about you, Dano, but to me, that's kind of the ideal thing. But the problem is then you have two lights, and that's a lot of extra weight and a lot of extra charging.
Oh, definitely. I like the brightest light possible in the front. I know some people like to get a smaller light and they actually attach it to the top of their helmet. Uh, a rear light is where I invest all my money because my thought process is, people, they see me from behind in a distance, then they're going to move over and give plenty of time. It does more for like urban cycling. Uh, if you're going to ride at night do you need to invest in a really good front light. Like there's those guys that do the overnight rides and like the 24-hour mountain bike rides. They're the ones that are getting really bright front lights that are almost as bright as a moped's light.
Oh yeah, and that's a lot of what I was doing, because about the only time I could find to actually ride where people weren't trying to hit me was at like 4 in the morning. So I was going out for my 4 in the morning rides to, get my ride in for the day, and that way, when you're brightly lit like that, you're a little bit more obvious than even when you're wearing all that bright orange and yellow clothing.
Oh yeah, and it's all about being seen. I have a good friend. His name is Skunk, and he is the leader of a bicycle chopper gang. They're kind of steampunkish, called Skull. That's actually how I met my wife. She was in the bicycle gang at the time, and he has this crazy tall bike, and his jacket he sewed in Christmas tree lights into a pea coat. He's got a disco ball, and it all runs off a car battery. Nobody is going to miss him.
Nice.
That's fun.
Yeah, and when you're out cycling, this is one time you don't want to exercise stealth, because if you do, then you probably aren't going to come back alive.
Exactly. And please, people, like I know there's so many debates out there about do you wear helmets, do you not wear a helmet? Like I've been in some pretty crazy accidents over the years. I've been in the hospital. I've broken plenty of bones. If I didn't wear a helmet, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. So, I'm not questioning how good you can ride, but something's going to happen. Maybe it's a moose that runs in front of you if you're here in Maine. Maybe it's a hipster with a coffee if you're in Seattle. But somebody's going to walk in front of you, and just want to be prepared.
Absolutely.
Oh, those hipsters.
Yeah. I'll second that, because I watched my dad go flying over a car that pulled out while he was in the middle of the crosswalk. Did more damage to the car than to the bike, too, I might add.
Wow.
Yeah.
One of those big old steel frames.
There
All right.
you go.
I think with that, we're going to probably wrap up the show, because we could go on for hours and hours. And I know that people are anxious to find out who won that live drawing. So, Dano, I've got 5 entries here. Give me a random number 1 through 5.
Nope, not that one.
Oh, that was
more
the best one.
random than that.
2.
2. All right. So 2.
The number of wheels on a bicycle.
Oh.
2 is going to be a Nighthawk 700. So congrats, Nighthawk. Send me your address, and I'll forward it on to Dano, who will get that out in the mail to you sometime next week, I think you said.
Yeah, I got Thursday off next week, so I'll go to the post office then.
And stand in line and deal with all of that stuff.
You don't know the sacrifice he's making for you, Nighthawk 700.
Oh, yes. Which reminds me, I have to get to the post office and mail a couple of those prizes out, but first I have to get into all of those boxes from my move and find the envelopes so that I can pack them. And no, I have the prizes. They're over here. Those I made sure didn't get packed and moved by the big burly men. I took those over myself. They're just too valuable to get lost. But no, I got to find the envelopes so that I can actually mail them out.
Well, I really want to know, what's the question of what I could possibly win next week?
Yes, and this is not something that I post in the show notes, so it's a top secret question.
I don't even know this question.
Oh. All right, so here's what you're going to have to do. Get your emails ready to geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com with the title Question 166. That's 166. And for next week's show, which is going to be about Project GC, we want to know what you have to do to complete a Calendar 366 challenge. So make sure to have that answer to us by March 4th at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, and that has to be titled Question 166 and emailed to geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com, and you could get one of those other cool prizes from coinsandpins.com.
How cool is that? Well, Daryl, you just talked about next week's show. That's 166 project-gc.com. The developer of that wonderful tool comes back to talk about some new features. And if you're not using it, guys, you're missing out. Now, on March 12th, we're going to have another randomized show. So send in your stories, and Daryl and I will discuss them. It doesn't matter what they are. We'll discuss anything. We don't really care. We kind of want it geocaching related, but, other than that, we'll talk about anything. On March 19th, we're going to be talking about mega events and what it's like to attend mega events and what you should keep in mind. March 26th, we're talking Geo Woodstock 13. Now, Dano, that's closer to you this year than it is to me.
It is. I already got told no excuses about not going, but I told DeBear that I'm probably not going to make it. We'll see what happens next year.
You could nearly ride your bike there. But be that as it may, we got a couple of committee members on to talk about this year's event, and it's not far from Washington, D.C. Now, April 2nd, we're going to talk about, are you ready for this? Foolish cachers. Geocachers do silly things sometimes in some places and kind of everywhere. So let us know some of your dumb mistakes you made and how they could be avoided so we can all learn from those experiences.
That's going to be a 4-hour show.
Without a doubt.
Check the Cachemaniacs website at cachemaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes for this and all of our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by calling 206-350-3647, by emailing geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com, or through social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniacs shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cachemaniacs shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Safnauer and Daryl Wanberg. This show is copyright 2015 by Daryl Wanberg. All rights reserved.
Cash with the Cachemaniacs.